Don't. Yeah, continue.
All right, we're live. Let me just quickly tweet out the links and then get started. Yeah, I was thinking, are you man free on Saturday? Like this time, like 12:1.
Mm-hmm.
We could do the AJ that part pod and talk about that in
Calm.
detail. And that way, like we're putting out a lot of content, and that way,
I saw Lee Wiley and them that had a couple fights yesterday night. They were there a few times.
oh, Ben Davison.
Ben Davison, yeah, that team, the whole
Yeah, because they
squad.
got a lot of
Fabio Wardley, Chris Congo, I think someone else as well. I can't remember. But yeah,
they got a lot
interesting.
of they've got a lot of clients in it. They got a lot
Yeah.
of people. So. But he's slowly building his stable. The next thing he needs to do now is get Lee Wood a fight because Lee Wood's been out for a bit now. He needs to get a big fight for Lee Wood.
Mm.
Not him, but obviously like
Management.
yeah, because they've been radio silent on that whole Lee Wood thing. Now they were gonna get Warrington again, but Joe Cordina. They wanted to do a stadium fight, but now it doesn't. Now it's just everything's been radio silent on that. So it's a bit weird. Right, ready?
Yep.
Right. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Ringside Fracas. I'm your host Naim, and today I'm joined by Dapper. Dapper, how are you, bro?
I'm doing well, brother. How are you?
I'm good. I mean, it's been a good weekend of fights to look forward to. I kind of titled the preview pod for this weekend as a weekend of bad blood because that was what the kind of heading was for the Wardley Clarke fight. And this weekend was literally bad blood. We had like so many
It's crazy.
bloodbaths going on. We literally saw guys having to come out of their shell and really show themselves as these warriors as we know them to be. Because my God, we got some bloodbaths on today, and also on the agenda, which we're going to come to towards the end, which is the main thing, which I know a lot of people want to discuss themselves. So we want to also hear your thoughts. So you've got some time to, the people listening in, the people watching, you've got some time to gather your thoughts. Who are your thoughts on this generation's GOAT? So not greatest of all time in general, but we're talking about this generation's GOAT and who's been the best boxer of this era. So make sure to keep tuning into the end because that's going to be a very detailed and long conversation as well. But as always, we're going to have to start with the recap. And of course, we've got Chris joining us. Chris, how are you, bro?
I'm good, lads. How are you?
Good. It's been a good weekend, isn't it? Like boxing's been kind of good this year. Like we've had a good year of fights to look forward to. We haven't really had anything stale this year going on, have we? It's been a good quarter. I'd say it's April now, is it? So it's been a good quarter of boxing, hasn't it?
For sure, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And to start off, I mean, we're going to start off with what a fight we got. A British title fight between Fabio Wardley and Fraser Clarke. I don't think anyone kind of expected this to light up the way it did. And it was such an entertaining bout from, start to finish. Fraser Clarke proving a lot of people, even myself and a lot of us on the pod from last weekend, proving us wrong and really showing he belongs on that stage and really sticking to Fabio Wardley, busting up his nose. That nose looked bloody as hell. But eventually it came out to a split draw, which I thought, was fair enough. I personally edged it to Wardley. I thought he just about nicked the couple rounds with the knockdown and the point deduction, but I couldn't argue with the draw. I thought the draw was fairly reasonable, but it was really back and forth, a good British title fight. And somehow these British title fights always seem to deliver. Like we always seem to get these really big back and forth battles that we love to remember. Chris, I'll come to you first. What are your thoughts on the fight itself?
Great fight, man. Great tear up. I feel like sometimes people forget what boxing actually is, and it's combat. It's primal combat between two people, and that's what we got on Sunday night. So both fighters were game. Obviously, a lot of us had a lot of reservations about Clarke, his tenacity, the fact that he hasn't really done much in the pro league. Obviously, Wardley being the less experienced fighter, there was always a bit of a skill gap that would always be there from a technical point of view. But in terms of his experience, his gamesmanship, and his tenacity, I feel like it kind of leveled. It was going to kind of level the playing field enough to the point where people thought Wardley would have the better of the fight and win the fight. But no, I'm not mad at the decision for a draw. Both fighters were game. Obviously, with the knockdown and the point deduction for low blow, I understand that you could it would have slightly edged to Wardley, in my opinion, but I can't complain, man. It's a fight that is worthy of being scored as draw for me personally. Both fighters really left a lot in the ring, and I feel like a lot of people would like to see a rematch, and even even trying to call what the result for the rematch would actually be, it's really hard to kind of say at this point in time. But I'm definitely down to watch that. I was impressed that Clarke managed to hang in there for as long as he did. Wardley's always game, even with his busted nose, which I think it's a re-injury. I think it's probably something he's going to need to get sorted out at some point in time, because he's always kind of breaking that nose bridge of his, and he's always bleeding profusely from it. But yeah, he was game. He's always been one of those fighters where when they see their blood, that's when they really start kicking into overdrive. So I was impressed. I was impressed. Boxer did well with the card in general, I feel.
Yeah, I said on the group chat, Wardley seems like the type of fighter where, like, see, those guys that say, "Oh, I see red," and no one can stop me. He looks like the epitome of that. Where he actually,
he is one of those guys for real.
Yeah, and you're right about the bridge, because I noticed afterwards. I looked at kind of pictures of him doing interviews before the fight, and on the fight week, and you always saw there was like this scar on the top of his.
Yeah, he's got those marks right at the top of his nose.
Yeah. So I wasn't surprised that now looking back here that okay, that's why it kind of opens up. It's like if you ever watch UFC, like Nate Diaz and them lot, they've got so much scar tissue around their face where it doesn't take a lot to quite open it up again, and it'll bleed quite heavily, even if it's not a lot of damage that they're taking.
And conversely, if you look at Clarke's face, he's not really that badly beat up. He's not really that badly marked up. He's got a couple scuffles and whatnot, but it's probably due to the fact that he's not really taken too much punishment to his head. I'm not sure if they were using head guard when he was fighting in the amateurs. Maybe they were, but you can obviously tell he's got much less scar tissue than your average heavyweight boxer for sure.
Yeah,
he took some big shots, and with the shots that he took, you'd expect to see a lot more damage to him, but he looked pretty game, looked pretty fine by the end of the fight.
Yeah, and like you said, the skill gap was quite evident in terms of you saw Clarke being able to go back to his amateur pedigree and just use his jab. I thought his jab was brilliant in that first couple rounds where Wardley was finding a lot of trouble trying to get in because he was just getting his head pinged off. He didn't know how to get past it. But the thing about Wardley is, like, as soon as he gets close, there's no thought process. He's just swinging for the hills. Like, even if it's to the body, he's just putting everything behind it. And the one thing I noticed about Clarke in that fight, and I noticed about quite a lot of amateur Team GB amateurs, Tocker's also pointing this out on Twitter, that they don't really know how to take punches well. I don't think anyone, and there's no proper way to take a punch well, but it's like, some fighters, like one of the biggest examples, if you look at Canelo, Triple G, their fights, whenever they took a punch, they were always rolling with it, but they knew how to kind of react to a punch if they got hit clean. With Clarke, it always seemed like he was kind of frantic every time he got hit clean. Like every time Wardley caught him clean, he just backed away and he kind of let Wardley come, and that's how the first knockdown came about. Was Wardley caught him with a good overhand right, and then Clarke just didn't know how to deal with it. Like it wasn't one that knocked him out, but it was kind of one that, like, oh well, wow, that hurt, and I don't want to take that again. And it was just like he didn't know how to react to it. And then Wardley just noticed that straight away and just pounced on him. And
I don't think they go at each other like that in sparring. Personally,
might not do. I think it's they don't know how to ride punches well. That's the big thing. Like if they get hit hard, they definitely show you that they've been hit, and it wears on their face. So that's why I think the knockdown happened. And the point deduction, if you guys remember the Dave Allen fight, sometimes Fraser Clarke gets frustrated in fights where he's not having his own way, and he always does these low blows because he's trying to frustrate the other opponent now because he's getting pissed off. And I think he's very lucky because that low blow, I thought the point deduction was more than warranted because, you know, they were in the clinch and then he just went straight for it. He knew he was going to hit. He wasn't hitting the body. He knew he was going low. So I thought he was very fortunate that the way the scoring went, he got a draw because that could have been his undoing, where he would have lost the fight because of that point deduction right there. Carl says on Twitter, Tyson Fury can ride a shot. Yeah, Tyson Fury can take a shot and he can get back up. Like that's not there's no doubt about that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just something I noticed. AJ does it as well sometimes where he gets a clean shot on him and it's not a shot that knocks him out, but it's a shot that you can tell has definitely rattled him a bit. So, and I think we're going to see the same with Clarke when he steps up more, if he does this rematch, and then obviously when he does carry on his career and he faces big punches, we're going to have to watch out that he does get quite frantic when he gets hit hard. So
yeah, I think that's why whenever we're watching AJ and he gets hit, everyone's like, because he doesn't respond well to it.
No, he doesn't ride it well. And pause. But like
big pause.
But yeah, we're gonna start that now. Yeah, let's make that a trend. Yeah, and I think, but with Wardley, god damn, that guy's a fighter. That guy can fight, man. Like, forget boxing. He's not the best offensive boxer or defensive boxer. Like, he's not the greatest skills, but boy, can he fight. He's always going to be in these entertaining bouts. I think he's going to be one of those guys that's everyone's always going to want to watch, because even if he wins or loses, he's going to be swinging and he's going to be scrapping. That guy has heart. They both do, but he's got buckets loads of it. Dapper, what were your thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, I thought it was a good scrap. I thought it was a good fight. Round one, I was really surprised. I thought Wardley would be a bit too much for Clarke. Clarke hasn't really impressed me in his previous bouts. You know, his fight against Dave Allen, I was really let down that he didn't do more in that fight, given that Dave Allen had just come off of like retirement. So he's never really impressed me. And ever since Wardley beat Adeleye, I thought, there may be a bit of a gap in between him and his other heavyweights, because he's got an intensity about him. He's not the best skillful heavyweight out there, especially in the UK, but like you said, he comes to fight. So going into this fight, I just thought Wardley would just pour it on and just hurt Clarke and just stop him. But when I saw the first round, I thought, okay, Clarke, he looks like the better boxer, like the better schooled boxer, utilizing different punches for different things. He had a very good jab, and it was a lot closer than I thought it would actually be. I still thought, Wardley just won because of the knockdown and the point deduction for the low blow, but Clarke surprised me. He surprised me. I thought he was going to get handled. Pause. But yeah, it was a really, really good scrap. My only thing now is I'm looking at Wardley and I'm thinking, what is his ceiling? Because there's only so far you can get fighting like that. The higher you go, the tougher fight opponents you face. You need to be a bit more dynamic as a fighter. And he, up to this point, he has one approach, and that approach has gotten him this far. But how does a rematch even look? Because I can see, Clarke making certain adjustments, but can Wardley make adjustments to Clarke's game plan? I don't know. That's the kind of questions I'm asking myself now based on that performance. But overall, it was a good fight, and I'm very intrigued to see what the rematch looks like. Yeah,
and with regards to the level, I feel like they've shown they're both on similar levels. That's why the draw is kind of significant. Of that.
Agreed. Yeah.
They're both kind of around the same level. I just think, looking at it, I'm not convinced that either guy can become a top 5 heavyweight. Forget the top 5 that we have in the future. Yeah. I don't think they can. And maybe top 10 they can give good fights, but I don't think they even entered the top 10. I think European level's kind of their ceiling, unless they show something different than this. But yeah, that's what I would take from that performance.
They both got
Jide,
into boxing a bit late, didn't they?
I don't know about Clarke, but Wardley, yeah, Wardley's
Okay.
very. Wardley's got a very unconventional background.
Wasn't Clarke AJ's bodyguard or something back in the day?
Yeah, but I think he's still part of doing the amateur stuff on top of that because
Okay.
he still needs to make money, isn't it? So, but Wardley was unconventional. He did white collar boxing, and then from that he basically got into boxing, but he didn't do any of the amateurs. He went straight to the pros and built himself from there.
That's sick. That's crazy.
Yeah, Jide, your thoughts on the Wardley and Clarke?
Yeah, first I need to start by saying my friends Chris and Dapper are handsome men. Why are they not showing their faces? What's going on? Why are you guys hiding? Why are you guys hiding? Don't want the ladies to the one woman that watches our channel to see you guys. But all I'm gonna say is I watched the fight today in it because yesterday I was out, so I didn't watch it live. So when the group chat, you lot were saying what a fight, blah blah. I was thinking, I was pissed. I'm like, I'm missing a classic here. I watched it back today, and from my prediction last week, I said Clarke will get cooked. Like I expected him to just get absolutely fried. I called him his chain was fake. I said I said I said all these things. And you know what? I still don't see him as an elite heavyweight technician like that. But I take a lot of things back in it. He definitely proved me wrong. I can't lie. You could see that in all the rounds, he won most of the rounds. Even the rounds he lost, he won most of them. His jab was sharper. He throws better combinations. When he does throw a combination, like not better, but more crisp, I should say. Like you can see like him turning in his shots, like throwing them cute little uppercuts. I'll say Wardley throws more eye-catching combinations, definitely. But I feel like Clarke, you can tell he knows he's scored. He knows what sort of shots to throw in certain circumstances, right? So, and that's why I'm about to say he's an idiot. He lost this fight. Like, if he didn't throw a stupid low blow, because he won that round 7, he won it. He was winning it, sorry. So if a judge gave it 10-9, that was gonna give it 10-9, now it's a 9-9. I didn't see the scorecard, so I don't know how it's done. But if that was a Clarke round, because I thought he won that round, now it's a 9-9, and that's why you drew. Or if someone gave it to Wardley, it's a 10-8. Like your stupid decision in throwing a shot like that cost you the fight when you didn't have to. But yeah, in terms of the fight, so I would say the first few rounds, like I said, I feel like Clarke was doing the better work until he got dropped. In that round 6, again, I feel like he
Round
was winning
5.
round 5. I feel like he was doing really well in that round, and boom, like you see Wardley's power. That's one thing about Wardley. Like he's got a lot of power. His athleticism is elite. Drops him. The next round, you could see Clarke was a bit scared. Not scared, but he wasn't willing to go in there with him. He's still trying to recover. And then there's the around 7, and then as soon as we get to like round 8, 9, you can see Wardley was just completely spent. His gas tank is finished. And even so, he was doing that thing where he would like save up a bit of energy and then just rally. Like Clarke was more, although Clarke was tired, but because again he's well schooled, he looked the busy. Like he looked, do you know what I mean? He looked like he was more. He had more to him. He was better. It was cool. It looked great. It looked great, but. When Woodley did throw it, he threw the eye-catching shots, he threw the combinations. But yeah, it was a great fight. I think a rematch has to happen, but I don't want it to be an instant rematch. I want Woodley to go back and still develop some of his boxing skills, while I want Clarke to gain this confidence to now go and actually show, not be a bum. Like, bro, you can't be struggling against the likes of Dave Allen. Like, you need to show levels. And today, you showed that you showed you're on that level. But my hats are off to Wardley, for a white collar guy to do that. You show it's just amazing, man. Like I really rate him. I didn't used to be a believer, but he's made me a believer. If they do have a rematch, I'm gonna make Clarke favorite because like Dapper said, I feel like as the boxer, he's probably be able to adjust more. He knows he can take his power relatively well, and he knows like Woodley maybe doesn't like do well over 12. So as long as he doesn't throw stupid low blows, he can win a close decision. So I would definitely love to see that fight again. And hats off to both guys.
Yeah, it was a really good fight, and it was a British title fight that delivered. And it's one of those ones that I think the crowd and everyone watching, we ended up getting our payoff, and it was a good night to enjoy, especially, and the amount of blood that was on the canvas was insane. But speaking on the same card, we'll go into the Chris Congo versus Florian Mark. What's it? Sorry about that.
Bless you.
Yeah, Chris Congo. Thank you. We'll go into Chris Congo obviously defeating Florian Marku, which I thought was Florian Marku could not even do the basics of pressure fighting. Didn't have a jab. Couldn't
That was
close the
so
distance.
bad. Yeah.
Didn't have any feints. His footwork doesn't know how to cut off the ring properly, and Chris Congo just stuck to the basics. Did real basic boxing. Jabbed, counted him when he found the opportunities, then turned, smothered the work when he needed to. And as the fight went on, Chris just kept building confidence and confidence. Couldn't really affect Marku, but was really making him uncomfortable, making him frustrated. Marco even got a point deducted because he kept hitting to the back of the head because he just kept getting frustrated. And I can't lie, Marco fights like how I expect him to do because he's a kickboxer. He fights like a kickboxer. There's no kind of finesse behind him. There's no tact. It's just, I'm going to go forward. I'm going to try to knock you out. And Chris just was slick. And you could tell his conditioning was going to be good in this fight because if you looked at him in the weigh-ins, he was very shredded. He looked in top shape. So, and he just boxed to a comfortable decision. And but I wanted to get your thoughts on that fight. Jide, I'll come to you first. Your thoughts on Florian Marku versus Chris Congo?
That fight was ass cheeks. Booty cheeks, no diddy. It was ass cheeks, man. Like I said, we said last week, we knew Chris Congo was the better boxer. We were just wondering if Florian Marku would just be on him and make Congo work. But because he was boxing like, bro, I'm not gonna say me because he'll fuck me up, but blood, the guy was just not. I don't know. It's like he didn't have no. He didn't know how to get past the reach, like the range. He didn't. Bro, Chris Congo was styling on him, but in a boring way. Like I wish Chris Congo had. If Chris Congo had the flair of like Ben Whitaker, he would be fine. He just doesn't have that flair. I don't know. Like maybe it's dark skin. There's no privilege of being dark skin. I don't know, man. There's got. I don't know why bro doesn't have
What's this guy
flair.
talking about?
I don't know why bro doesn't have flair,
I
man.
brought Dr. Umar into the pod.
Fam, Dr. Umar is. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's got to be a Dr. Umar. But yeah, the thing is that fight, like, it just wasn't great. It wasn't a great fight for me. Florian Marku doesn't know how to close the gap properly. Doesn't move his head. He's got power, but doesn't know how to use it. Doesn't throw. Doesn't. It's like he can't jab. He can jab, but it's like it doesn't use it. I just don't know why. It's like they didn't have a game plan. I hope he got paid for that because that just looks like a cash out fight to me. He got all the Albanians to come out to support him and then he embarrassed himself. Like it was such a poor performance. Chris Congo, I feel like now he just looked forward. He's established himself as the current crop, I guess, the best British welterweight, right? Currently.
No, not really.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, not really.
Who's better than him?
He still
He
lost to
lost to
Mickinson,
Echo.
right?
No, he lost to Echo Esserman, and then Echo Esserman lost to Harry Scarf. So on
Yeah.
merit, you have to give it to Harry Scarf because he's the British title holder now.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, them two fight. I'll say that for me, that would probably be the fight I'll do if I was him. I'll go for that fight. Like it's just basically showing that Marku's not on that tier at all. And I hope this builds up his following because that's one thing that Chris Congo's struggled to have in his career so far. And like these sort of fights, these sort of profile fights, again, although it wasn't the greatest performance, it's still you still have eyes watching you. So yeah, it's just on to the next one for him. But Marku,
It's
bro,
probably
forget
career's
it.
best performance though.
Oh yeah, easily, easily,
Yeah.
easily. It was so it was such a family. He styled on him like he genuinely styled on him. It was not. He didn't really struggle in that fight whatsoever. But yeah.
Chris, your thoughts on Chris Congo?
Yeah, while I don't actually think it is as bad as Jide per se, but I mean, it wasn't the most entertaining fight, but it was just because Congo's style made it so it wasn't entertaining. He moved his feet, didn't allow um thingy Marky to get close in, and man was just walking in straight lines, like trying to close the ring without setting up any shots, without trying to actually make Chris Congo think. And it just became an easy day at the office for Chris Congo. What that fight actually reminded me of was there was a sparring session with Chris Congo and Freezing McBones. This was a couple years ago, and it just reminded me so much of that, where you got one fighter who maybe is the stronger fighter on the inside, who maybe hits a bit harder, but isn't given an opportunity to use their best attributes because this person isn't coming to fight like how they would expect, other people to come and fight them. And I think that's one thing where you can see Florian Marcus is really struggling, and it's just the fact that I feel like his style is only good against people that are there really wanting to scrap, really wanting to fight, because he hits hard, clearly. He's got some power. He fights well up close, but when it comes down to, the full scope of boxing, controlling the ring, cutting your opponent off, knowing when to step in, knowing when to step back, it doesn't really look like he has those fundamentals in place. And the fight was actually quite similar to another fight on the card, which was the Vidal Riley fight, where you got one person, maybe not so
That
one-sided,
fight was arse.
not so one-sided as that. I think that was even more one-sided.
That
But
was the worst fight of the night. But yeah.
yeah. And I you can't blame Vidal Riley for that. But this fight really reminded me of that, and it was just a trend of one fighter who just does not, who's apparently the power puncher, who doesn't know how to put themselves in range to throw them shots, to let them shots go. So
Nah, do you know what fight this fight reminded me of when I was watching it? AJ Ruiz too. That's what this fight reminded me of.
yeah, but you know what? What the one difference I'd say with that is when you have a heavyweight who's able to move like that, it makes a bit more sense, because the power is
I'm
always
talking about
there.
from Ruiz /
Yeah,
Marcus side.
yeah.
Not
I get what
not
you're
AJ.
saying,
Yeah.
but the reason that fight wouldn't have been as boring was because of the fact that in the heavyweight division, you got a high propensity for one-shot knockouts. So there was always a risk. He'd been knocked out by Ruiz before, so it felt like there was always a risk until the final bell went that AJ could be caught and he could go down. Whereas with these two fights, it just you never really got that feeling, particularly with the Vidal Riley fight. You just never, it was just enough. It looked like
I
sparring.
didn't get that feeling with the Vidal Riley fight, but I definitely got that feeling with the Marcus fight. It looked like Chris Congo, if he got clipped, he would have gone down.
Yeah, but you know what? I feel like after a while, Congo adjusted to the point where it didn't feel. It felt like it wasn't gonna happen. It just felt like it
Yeah, I
wasn't.
feel you. After a couple rounds, I feel like he
Yeah,
settled.
it felt like,
Because those
obviously
first couple rounds, he looked
the
nervous
power
about
is
getting hit.
real. The power is
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
Florian Marku has got power, but after a while, the fear factor left. For me as a viewer, I never felt like Chris Congo was going to get knocked out. But yeah, overall, not a great fight. Definitely not the worst card, not the worst card or fight on the card, but definitely not a memorable fight for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Dapo, anything else you want to add on to the Chris Congo? Because I think we got your thoughts already.
Yeah, no, I didn't really enjoy the fight, but I'm happy with the result. I I like to see the humbling of some of those Albanians because Marco was annoying me, man. And sometimes he's like, I don't know, man. I don't want to talk about any racial stuff, but they can be a bit much. But I'm happy with the result. I thought Chris Congo boxed a disciplined fight. I did feel like some of those rounds though, he was very wary of that power, especially when it came closer to the ropes, etc. But he did well. He smothered the work, didn't let Marco get too close. And just to reiterate what Judy and Chris have already said, Marco looked awful, in my opinion. Like, yeah, he looked really, really bad. And he just didn't have a sophisticated come forward game plan, which you would think he would have, because Chris Congo didn't do anything out of the ordinary. This is how he fights. This is how he's always fought. So you would have thought, they would have come prepared for that kind of style. But yeah, he just looked like bedazzled. And I'm not too sure why, because I don't feel like Congo was in anything complex. But not to take anything away from him, because I think he did what he needed to do to win the fight. And I'm happy he won that fight. It looked like that fight meant a lot for him as well, because afterwards he spoke about how he took an L last year and he'd been off out of the ring for a year, etc. So it was a big deal for him, and I'm happy that he got that W. But yeah, Marco just wasn't impressive at all. Yeah, I want to see what Congo does next, because it seems like I'm not too sure how long he's been with Ben Davison and that crew, but it seems like those guys are doing well with their fighting at the moment. So I'm looking forward to what he does next.
Yeah. And with regards to the Riddell, Riley, and Loire fight, not much to comment. Riley did what he needed to do. Didn't really look the levels, but he just got through the fight, like Chris said. He just got through it and did what he had to do and win it. Just one more thing that I wanted to go on about that card. Ben Whittaker. So now Ben Whittaker was in the fight where I think he didn't kind of expect the opponent to be as resistive and as game as he would have expected. Going into the fight week, I had this big issue about Ben Whittaker, because I've been saying that his matchmaking has been quite poor. Because if we look at Ben Whittaker, I get in boxing, we always have to build up prospect. But Ben Whittaker isn't a prospect. He's done the whole amateur scene and he's been to the top of the amateur game. You can accelerate his matchmaking a bit quicker than most other guys. Like Moses Atama, for example, he's new, he's young, that's the type of guy you would take your time with. With Ben Whittaker, we can kind of accelerate him to a decent level opponents, at least English level opponents, not central area champions. But Leon Willings really came out there and really stuck it to him. And he really, it was a fight that Ben Whittaker won almost not every round, but he won at least, I think out of the 8, he won 6 at the minimum. But he was getting tagged a lot and he couldn't showboat as much as he wanted to. He had to really get serious a bit in that fight. And his power didn't look the same because, Leon was eating those shots. He only went down once in the first round, and then he could take some of these shots and he was firing back. And this is what I've been saying about these type of fighters is you have to put them in this trial by fire, because you can't throw them into the deep end exactly, but you got to put them in with opponents that they could beat, but you also know that they're going to have a test against, and this person's going to show them a lot. And someone like Ben Whittaker, if you're really touting him and thinking that he's going to become a world champion, he needs to be put in better fights against better opponents so that he can improve and show that he's the levels. Like, for example, and I don't know if I mentioned this last weekend, but the guy that he beat in the Olympic to get to the Olympic finals, in the Olympic semi-finals, who became an Olympic bronze medalist, Imam Khatsayev, is fighting Ricards Bolotniks next on Lomachenko's undercard. So if he's fighting Buatsi's best win in his 6th pro fight, why can't Ben Whittaker at least fight the English light heavyweight champion? Why are we still kind of pissing around with the central area champions? And after this performance, you can guarantee Box are probably going to take the break, pump the brakes on and go back to fighting tin cans, so they can build the showmanship back up again and build, the highlight reel knockouts, rather than giving him fights that he should be in, where he can also develop and learn more about himself. Because he learned more in this fight than he learned in those last 5 fights that he's had. So that's my take on Ben Whittaker, that he's he's someone that I take seriously, but I feel like his matchmaking, his promotion don't take it seriously enough. They're trying to protect him too much. Don't throw him into the deep end exactly, but you can allow him to go, put him into a fight where there's going to be a bit of a test. But I'll come to Chris. I'll come to you first. Your thoughts on Ben Raker's last performance last night?
Right. So I feel like I have an unpopular opinion. I don't think he was that bad at all. Really and truly. I really, really don't think it was that bad.
I disagree, boy.
Because I watched basically I maybe it's because of the what I saw on social media. I didn't catch that one live. So I saw that I actually watched that this morning. And everything I was hearing is that, oh yeah, Ben's been exposed. He's got loads of work to do. He's got this to do. He's not looking good. He can do this against an area level opponent. I saw a lot of that, and then I went into it thinking, wow, how bad was this fight? Well, how bad was this performance? And yeah, he didn't have it his own way. He didn't have he wasn't able to just smoke this guy out. And there are obvious questions about his progression through the pro ranks, just the kind of opponents he's been fighting. But I'll be honest, this guy he came to fight. What was his name?
Leon Willings. He was
Leon Willings.
He's a Central Area champion, but obviously his belt wasn't on the line here.
Right, yeah. So he looked pretty decent. I'm gonna be
They're
honest with
young
you.
as well, 23.
I'm gonna be very, very honest with you. I was more impressed with him, and I could see that Ben Whittaker was also quite impressed with the opponent he was fighting. He obviously wasn't. This is the least I've seen him showboat since he's turned pro. He had to work. He got hit with a lot of shots. I saw him say in an interview after the fight that he wanted to get hit or he got hit on purpose. I don't think that's completely true. I do, however, feel like he was a bit lax purposely, not by just lack of concentration. I feel like he kind of just let his guard down on purpose, maybe to look good, maybe to be aware of different things. But he definitely knowingly knew he was going to get hit more than he otherwise would, and he got caught flush with a couple shots, couple decent shots. But Willings was good, man. I see him use the Philly shell to kind of evade a lot of shots in the corner. His main issue was that he wasn't throwing enough shots. But Ben ultimately he won every round, and he's dropped him. For me, yeah, you're gonna have your off days. I feel like people kind of go overboard when it comes to bad performances, especially because of how viral his last one went. But yeah, it's not his best performance, but it definitely wasn't that bad. It's probably best for him to go through something like this at this stage of his career rather than later on. And it puts things into perspective for him and his team. Now they know, we've got to slowly ramp him up. The quality of fighter he's got to fight has got to increase. Maybe a couple of things he was doing before he shouldn't be doing anymore. A couple of the showboating tactics, not all of them. I still think he should be himself, but there's limits. There was times when he took his foot off the gas for no apparent reason, other than to showboat. There was times where he was showboating and got himself hit as a result. I see him talking to his opponent's trainer, and he got hit while he was talking to his opponent's trainer. Like things like that. The more you step up, the less you're going to be able to get away with that. You're a light heavyweight, so the guys you're going to be fighting are going to have some pop. They're going to have some power. There's always going to be a chance of you getting hurt pretty badly if you're messing about, being lax with the wrong kind of opponent, even if they're not particularly on your level. So yeah, all in all, not the greatest of performances, but I think it was very necessary.
Yeah, I agree, and this is the point I was making about the matchmaking, where we need to start seeing him. Like, I feel like Ben Whittaker right now could probably beat a Shaq Peters and a Ricky Summers, if we're being honest. I think he can. I think they should put him in there because he's more than capable enough of knuckling down and fighting those opponents, and I think he'll turn up and put in a performance. But we need to stop doing this slow matchmaking. That's my main point with him. I don't think he's been exposed, but I think, like you said, he's got to take it a bit more seriously now, these type of opponents, and they've got to start matching him better. Jay, your thoughts on Ben Whittaker?
My boy Shanta Roy Jones. I'll say is like Chris. I'm more impressed with his opponent, Liam, whatever his name is. Sorry, man, but I need to research you. Like, you've definitely impressed me. Like, the guy can fight. Well, not that he can fight, he can move. His movement is so like he's got good footwork. He throws his shots with it in between when Ben was throwing his shots. That just shows he's got good tactics. I mean, he was catching Ben, like it was working. The guy has skills, bro. Like he should take his career serious. So like him taking his career serious would do. I'm not saying he's gonna be like a world champion or some shit like that, but he can actually do something in the game rather than just being central area champion. So I don't know. He needs to go back to the drawing board and take his career serious. But as for Ben, this is what I was saying before. I'm like, it's all good doing all that Roy Jones stuff against bums, in it, like real bums. But doing it against guys who can resist a bit would impress me a bit more. And I'm not here to say I do not enjoy the showboating. The showboating is it's like it's entertainment at the end of the day, but you want to be down to business, like get the guy out there. Like Ben Whitaker still tried to do the showboating, but he just didn't know. It's like he didn't know how to break down a guy that's knows how to survive. And it's not just knowing how to survive. The guy is giving you some resistance. He didn't know how to cut off the ring when he was when he was against the ropes. His counters weren't really damaging or discouraging the guy. He wasn't going to the body to soften. Like Ben Wick wasn't doing a lot of things, and I'm like, bro, you are an elite, not good. You are an elite prospect. There's certain things I should be seeing you doing right now that you're not doing. Is this why boxers are so slow with him? Like it's starting to make me think. Like the same guy thought he said he could beat Dan Aziz. Bro, Dan Aziz will beat the crap out of Ben Whitaker. Be a good fight, but Dan Aziz will win. Will win because he'll press him, he'll throw shots to the legs, to the arms, to the body, to the head. Like he will do things and take Ben Whitaker down the trenches. Like and Ben Whitaker don't have the power to keep him off. Like he doesn't have the sort of pop that's gonna discourage his opponents, who's gonna put pressure on him. Like I'm looking at Ben in a lot more critical lens because I expect this guy to be world champion and to take over obviously after the likes of Yard and Boatsi and them lot are he's the next crop of the British like heavyweights. He's supposed to be our flag bearer. So I'm looking at his performances and I need to see like, okay, what can this guy do and what can he improve on? And what I saw yesterday, again, it's not an indictment in his career. It's not like he's gonna be dead, but he doesn't have the pop to discourage guys. That is worrying. That is very worrying to me. And if you're that guy, you don't hit hard. One thing that people don't know about Roy Jones, actually they do know, but Roy Jones hits hard. With all that unorthodox stuff he likes doing, the guy hits hard. So when he hits you, you know. So you're not as encouraged to just bomb rush him. But I feel like with Ben, because he doesn't have the same sort of pop, he doesn't turn over his punches. He still punches like an amateur sometimes. Like guys are just gonna like sit on his chest, let him do all that Roy Jones stuff, and just punch him in the hip. You see how these Mexicans when they fight, when they're throwing their punches, they'll punch you in the hip, punch your they'll punch all over your body. It doesn't even have to be scoring shots, but it's gonna wear you down. And if you can't get them off you, you're pissed. Like look at Subriel Matias. He's not Mexican, but bro, high volume pressure would be absolute hell for Ben Whitaker. And until I can see that he can do other things, like he can go to the body, okay, I might not hit hard, but I can discourage you by jabbing your solar plexus. These are the sort of things I want to see from him. Then I'll be like, yeah, okay, cool. Then I can trust you in those sort of fights. But right now, I'm just seeing it's just a show. So I know it's a critical take, but it's because I have very high expectations for Ben Whitaker, and him saying stuff like, "Oh, I let the guy hit me to show I've got a good chin." Like, brother, please.
Ninja, please.
Like, that is not what we're trying to. I'm not even trying to hear that. Even if it's, let's say, quote unquote true, which we know it's not. Why are you trying to get? Why do you want to get chin tested? Like, your chin will break down. Look at Joey Joyce. Look at how many guys. Look at Dylan White. Like, do not get chin tested. It's gonna come and bite you. So it's just like, I don't know. I feel like maybe he was a bit embarrassed he didn't do what he thought he was gonna do. But yeah, he's got a lot of work to do, man.
And Dapo, your thoughts on Benzo Whitaker?
Listen, I think Chris and Julia are being too nice. Ben Whitaker, listen, I'm gonna need you to park that showboating, man. I need you to lock in. He needs to lock in. I'm gonna need that showboating to stop. I actually agree/disagree with certain points. So for me, I feel like it's not his ability that made the performance not good as it should have been. I think it's the showboating, man. He hurt that guy in the first round. He put him down. He could have ended that fight in the first or second round if he just locked in. Why are you talking to the crowd, to the coaches, and all this stuff while you're in a fight? Good finishes, good knockouts, good performances will always trump showboating. If you really want that attention, if you would have got a nice knockout, people would care about that more than you Azonto in the ring. We don't care about that, bro. Like, you're doing it against people that you're supposed to beat. Is not that impressive. I would have been a lot more impressed if he finished the fight when he was supposed to. But because he wants to dance around and show how good he is and take punches on purpose. I've never heard that before. Who gets punched on purpose in boxing? I've never heard of that. Take punches on purpose because he wants to do all of that. That's why the performance looks like that. And he stayed in that fight and found out how good the other guy actually is. He didn't have to find that out. He could have ended that fight in the second round, second round, but he thought, I'm in here with a guy that's just a couple levels below me, so I can kind of do what I want. And in doing so, he found out very quickly that's not the kind of fight he's in, and that's why he looked the way he looked, not because of his ability or anything like that. You know, even though I agree with Jide in terms of, like, if we put him in there with a good pressure fighter right now, I think he'll come unstuck. But I think more than that, it's his approach to these fights. Lock in, beat the guy, on to the next one. That's always it's gonna fare well for him better in the long run than all this showboat and stuff. That's my opinion anyway. I feel like he's having these kind of fights because he wants to go in there and dance and Dougie and all this stuff. Bro, just lock in, knock the guy out, get him out the way. That's way more impressive than all the stuff you're doing.
Yeah, well said. And I think that concludes the kind of card for the British one. So we'll quickly come on to what happened in America on the Saturday. Tszyu, Sebastian Fundora, I say, won a split decision over Tszyu in what was a actual bloodbath. I mean, there was so much blood involved in that fight. It was insane. And he becomes WBO and WBC light middleweight champion. I mean, it was a fight where it was quite unfortunate because it got marred by a bit of a freak accident where Sebastian Fundora's elbow accidentally dug into the top of Tszyu's head, and the cut was so deep that it just wouldn't stop bleeding. And Tszyu from the end of round 3, so that happened at the end of round 2. So from round 3 onwards to round 12, he was just fighting with blood all over his face, literally a whole crimson mask, and trying to fight, but obviously he couldn't fight the best he could. And Sebastian Fundora, smart enough, recognized that and just used his reach and kept him off of him and just kept jabbing. Didn't do a lot in that fight. He caught Tim here and there when he knew Tim wasn't looking at it, wasn't be able to see him. And, you know, he took advantage of it. But it was a close back and forth fight where I thought Fundora just about edged it. Again, unfortunate for Tim because that happens, but it's very freakish, that type of cut especially. But, you know, I feel like he's the type of guy, he's come away with a lot of stock from that fight because of the way he's approached the fight. You know, taking on a guy like Sebastian Fundora in 12 days. He didn't complain. He didn't say anything. That's like the equivalent is like, imagine when AJ and White happened, and White obviously pulled out, because of the drugs test. And AJ said, "Give me Hergovich" on 7 days' notice. It's the exact same thing, basically, of what Tim Tszyu did, and had the cut on his head, didn't complain, just kept fighting, trying to push through 10 rounds despite all this blood coming out, and there's a lot of blood as well. He did hurt Fundora quite a bit, even despite being not being able to see, and took his licks, and he wants to be back there again. So once the cut's healed, we'll see what is on the future for him. But it's one of those ones where I feel like, you could come away from that, and you look at him, and everyone was looking at him. Most people that were looking at him were saying, what, fair enough, man. Tim Tszyu, like, really, he's that guy when it comes to being that throw. He's not just saying he's a throwback fighter. He's actually showing that he's a throwback fighter. Dapo, I'll come to you first as Adam joins us. Adam, how are you, bro?
I'm all good, brother. How you doing?
Yeah, we're all good, bro. So we're just talking about Fundora and Tszyu. So, Dapo, what are your thoughts on that fight and how it went down?
Yeah, it's an unfortunate outcome for Tim Tszyu. I think that's a fight that he probably would have won if the cut never happened. So it's unfortunate. It was very, very bloody. And I agree on the optics of it. There is positives. The optics of it look good in terms of he wants all the smoke, Tszyu, right? And he's ready to put himself through hell, even win, lose or draw. Really, I feel like his team could have, pulled him out of that fight, and they could have possibly been ruled a no contest because of the blood. But he fought through it, but I'm a bit worried because I don't know how much that actually serves him in today's climate of boxing. How good does it do for you to be a quote unquote throwback fighter? I don't know, because right now, as much as it looks good, he's still lost. He's lost his belts, and he's not guaranteed a rematch with Fundora. And the belts will probably fragment now, those two belts. So who knows what's next for him? Obviously, hopefully, he can have a quick turnaround and put himself in a position to earn his championship back. But in this case, I feel like the whole, throwback fight might have hurt him a little bit more than it actually helped him. But overall, it was a good fight. Just unfortunate. I think if they were to rematch, I think Tim Tszyu would win. I don't feel like he was outclassed or anything like that. I just feel like it was a very, very unfortunate freak cut that kind of slipped the fight off his fingers, kind of thing. But yeah, I see that Spence is calling out Fundora now for a fight. Very bum shark, very interesting. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Chris, your thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, good fight, man. Good fight. Both guys were game. It's a real shame about the injury, man. It completely changed the trajectory of the fight. I remember saying when the fight was initially made, when Thurman pulled out, I remember saying this is probably not a good idea because you can't train for someone like Thurman who, is smaller than you for so long. You got your game plan. You've geared your sparring towards a certain kind of fighter. Just completely different attributes, and to switch that to such an extent, I don't think there's a bigger style change you could ever find. Definitely in that division, possibly in any division, from going from a fighter like Keith Thurman to Fundora. It's just two different fights entirely, and yeah, it's a shame. Maybe in the rematch, if the rematch does happen, they'll be a lot more prepared for all sorts of different obstacles, maybe elbows, maybe just things that you wouldn't ordinarily see against a fighter who's a similar height to you. Probably get the right sparring partners to kind of acclimatize himself to that kind of opponent. But yeah, man, I like the way Tim Tszyu didn't make no excuses. gave Fundora his credit, even though we know how unfortunate the injury he sustained was, the accidental injury. And I remember someone talking about this, basically how excuses are ruining boxing, because no one gets credit for any of their wins anymore, because there's always an excuse in almost all high-profile fights. There's always something. I didn't feel right. This happened. My trainer is poisoning me. All sorts. So, yeah, credit to him. I would like to see a rematch for sure.
Yeah, perfectly well said. Adam, why here? And then Jide, I'll come to you after. Adam, what are your thoughts on Fundora and Tszyu?
Yeah, so I stayed up and watched the fight live, actually. And to give you my personal breakdown, I mean, I'm not going to be saying anything completely revolutionary here. It's quite obvious that that cut there was the main talking point of the fight. I think the first 2 rounds prior to the cut, you could really see a difference in skill gap and level. Like, I just thought Tszyu looked like he was finding his range very quickly against someone that's that much taller. And it was like there was the setting of a very comfortable boxing fight that was going to come up. I thought he looked in control, found his range very quick. It wasn't a case of him like still trying to feel him out. He was closing in the distance very well. And then, of course, that cut happened and the fight was turned on his head. What I thought was, I'm kind of happy for Fundora as well, because he's just come off a really bad KO. And it's a great comeback story for him. And he's such a exciting fighter for the fans. He's not afraid of smoke whatsoever. He lets his hands go. And he's usually a fighter, despite being that tall. He likes to fight in on the inside a lot. What we saw on that night, we actually saw Fundora keeping that range and using his jab a lot more than I've ever seen previously. And it was quite obvious that Fundora and his team, his corner, kind of saw what's happened in the fight, and they saw their ticket to the belt. They knew exactly what they had to do. They changed their game plan and they adjusted and tried to fight at range. Kept the jab popping. I'm pretty sure it's the fight where he's thrown most jabs compared to any of his other fights as well. And it was a solid game plan that came after that cut. So you can't really blame him for fighting in that manner. He wasn't as close as usual, but he'd done what he had to win. And Tszyu was kind of a victim of his own manhood, so to speak. It's exactly what Dapo was saying earlier in that.
Manhood sounds crazy, but anyways, go on, sorry.
But yeah, it's just a case of him just being that type of stand-up guy. Pause again before you guys start going off. But him kind of being stand-up guy, didn't want to really make any excuses. I feel like there was a chance where the corner could have pulled the fight or something, and it could have gone as a no contest before the 4th round, because it was a horrible cut. And the majority of the fight, you have Tszyu trying to parry and wipe blood off his face at the same time. You could tell his vision was completely altered, just blood gushing in non-stop. And he really struggled. See, I didn't think, after the cut, I didn't think Tszyu done much at all, and I can't really blame him. How it was a split decision, I don't know. I thought it was quite comfortable for Fundora in the end, albeit because of the circumstances of the fight. And I do think that the right thing to do would be to have that rematch, just for both honor of the fighters. It was clearly a fight which was let down because of the cut, so to speak. But I do feel like PBC are going to use Tszyu as just like a stepping stone in this aspect, where they have other bigger fighters that they're going to bring into the picture against Fundora, which is unfortunate. So, but he seems like the type of fighter this won't discourage him whatsoever. He'll probably go back to the drawing board, try get a few wins under his belt, and challenge once again. And I hope he gets the mandatories sooner rather than later, because he's a throwback fighter that deserves it, really. And if we're going to set an example where these throwback fighters that aren't scared of anyone and they aren't worried about getting into the ring with anyone. If we're going to start doing these type of fighters unjustly, then it's going to put off the next generation of fighters from being that as well. And I think we need more of these fighters back in the sport. So I hope what's right ends up happening. I don't see him getting a rematch, but yeah, that's my take really.
Yeah. Jay, you ready? You said you're gonna cook, so I'm ready as well. So you ready for your Fundora Tszyu take?
To be fair, I'm not even cooking like that, man. Adam said most of what I echo Adam's sentiments perfectly. Like, I think the cut and the unorthodox game plan. No, it's not unorthodox. It's what Fundora should have been doing as a 6'4" super middleweight. That's how he should always fight. Really, like keep it long and only scrap when you have to. But yeah, so I think that played into the outcome of the fight. I think it was definitely his fight. Like he won that fight. Hit being split is a bit, but cool. What I will say is, my man let PBC ruin his career. It's not ruined per se, but he had all the chips, he had all the cards, but he wanted to play this Al Heyman PBC stuff. Like you could tell they were fucking you about when they didn't give you Jamal Charlo. What did he think he was gonna get out of this? Like it was there. The signs were there. Remember when I said when this fight was made, I'm like, this could be a potential banana skin. We're like, yeah, Fundora is a better fight than Thurman, 100%. But it's like man's getting a title shot based off what of getting KO'd. But even then, it's still a better fight. But it's a massive banana skin. What are the chances that he's been preparing for Tim Tszyu while Tim Tszyu's only finding out he's about to fight him 2 weeks before the fight? It seems. Also, I'm not trying to be here do conspiracy theory, but it's just very, very convenient. How all the cards stacked up. It's very weird. It's very convenient. A man has now lost his belt. They didn't have a signed rematch clause, a verbal like who does that? That is gross negligence. Al Heyman will never do a verbal rematch clause with any of his fighters, but he's doing it with Tim Tszyu. And now that that's happened, we're hearing Spence is now first in line. Samson Lukowitz, that bum, talking about, we're gonna do the Spence fight next, is the most money. Like, do you know what? This is sickening. This is sickening to me.
It really is.
Tim,
It really
Tim
is.
Tszyu is now being basically pushed out of the picture. They finally got rid of the Tim Tszyu problem, so he's now just gone. They're gonna freeze out Terence Crawford, so he can't get the WBO fight unless he just fights Tim Tszyu anyways. I just don't even know how that situation is gonna pattern. And now Spencer's talking about a Dallas Stadium fight or Dallas Arena fight with Fundora, which is that's a fun fight, by the way. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's a bad fight. It's a fun fight, but Tim Tszyu allowed these bums to basically derail his career at this point when they've been showing you that they do not rate you. They've not rated him for the last 2 years. They wanted you. They gave you a Thurman fight to open up the Amazon Prime situation and try to lobby the WBO to make it a fight with the belt on the line. Like, be so fucking serious, guys. These bums ruin careers, and I hope Tim Tszyu, what's happened to him is a tale for any other person who's not within the PBC clique, who's not in the inner circle, is thinking to sacrifice their careers for some American exposure. If you wanted American exposure, you go to Top Rank. You do not go to PBC. I understand PBC have the lay of the land in the 154 division, but that is already dying, bro. Charlo's gone. Lara's 100 years old and he's a middleweight now, anyways. Like, they don't have the same monopoly on the 154 division that they used to. You essentially sacrificed your momentum, sacrificed your no, his career still one. It will come back. But I'm just very disappointed in the decisions he's been making. And now it's come back to bite him. So Tim Tszyu, I don't know how far nepotism can take you, but you just become unstuck and you will get frozen out. You're Australian, bro. They do not need you. you was a problem to them. Now you have essentially, you're gone. You're gone. You've just the cards you had, you just basically gave it away. And let me not like be disrespectful to Fundora. Amazing fight. Like the accidental clash definitely played to it, but the tactics was very surprising. I thought Fundora was just going to be in there trading. No, he showed different um nukes to his game plan, and yeah, he deserved the win, and he deserved to be champion right now. So all hats up to him. But Tszyu, you disappointed me, bro. You really disappointed me.
Yeah, just to echo on top of what Jide was saying, I think it's a bad loss because not only have we seen this pan out again and again with PBC, but good luck trying to get those belts back in circulation again. Once these belts kind of go under the PBC establishment, it's a headache trying to get them back out with title fights, unification fights, and so forth. It's like those guys will hold them hostage for as long as possible. And what Jide said is just completely spot on. I think he's been really mishandled by PBC, and they clearly have their favorites over there. So
yeah, perfectly well said. Right, let's move on to the last fight of the recap, and then we're going to go into the bulk conversation that I think everyone's here for. I'm going to start this one off. Don't cancel me, but this was the most. I think in history, this is probably the first time we've ever had the first world title fight that was fought for under special needs conditions. Because what the hell? Both of them are two of the stupidest boxers I've ever seen. Rolly is even more stupid, but Cruz, his pressure fighting is bad. Like he just comes forward and just swings. There's no jab. There's no idea behind his pressure fighting, and it was just so. It was such a. I couldn't believe watching that the winner was going to become a world champion. Like this might be the first time that, like I said, we've had a special needs world champion in boxing. Like really and truly, like, these lot need to get they need to get checked out by someone.
Are you gonna get cancelled, man?
Well,
I hate you, but special needs champion is crazy.
It was such a bad.
It was entertaining. Let's just say that it was like a very entertaining fight. Yeah. It was a very entertaining fight.
Like in terms of levels, like this was.
In terms of levels, it's one of the poorer levels of a world championship fight I've seen.
Especially when you consider the division that they're in and how stacked it is. They are one of the worst world champions. As Isaac Cruz is probably one of the worst world champions you have right now. It wasn't great to watch. And Rolly's even stupid as he gets. Like he just couldn't do anything in the fight. His punches couldn't affect Cruz, and Cruz was just walking forward. And we all know Cruz doesn't have a jab. Pressure fighting doesn't need a jab, my guy. Yes, it does. If you know pressure fighting, you still need a jab to get in on the inside. So you don't know boxing, mate. But yeah, that was
down quick.
I'm not entertaining that we don't need a jab. You do need a decent jab to get in on the inside. We saw what happens when you don't have a jab and you don't have good feints with Florian Marku. How he wasn't able to cut off the ring. To have great pressure fighting, you do. But when you have a guy like Rolly Romero in front of you who can't really move that well and he doesn't really know how to keep you off of him, well then you don't need much. You just have to go at him and hit him. But then when you see Isaac Cruz fight a guy like, for example, Shakur Stevenson, or he'll fight, and like Jide said on the preview, this is probably leading up to a Tank rematch, so Tank can become a 3-division world champion. Then you're going to come unstuck because you don't have what you need to get in on the inside, and then they're just schooling on you. So you do need a jab. I'm sorry, but you do need a decent jab on you. But yeah, this was one of the worst levels, but it was fun to watch while it lasted, and it was good viewing. I think they did like 2 or 3 million on the highlights for the YouTube, so like people were watching and tuning in. But yeah, to me this just seems like we're just going to get another Tank fight from Cruz now, and he hasn't shown me anything to say that he's going to beat Tank again at all. He hasn't really. If you put Cruz against Amy, if you put Cruz against Matthias, And if you put Cruz against Teofimo, he loses all 3 fights. He gets the Matias and Teofimo fight. He probably gets battered in because stylistically, it's just not good for him.
Stylistically, it's a worse matchup for him, I think. Yeah.
So that's my thoughts. If you want to cancel me over it, I don't really care. I don't care. Honestly, I don't care. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Cruz and Rolly. Jide, I'll come to you first because I know this is a very sensitive topic for you because it pertains to a certain character in boxing that you don't like.
Firstly, that character is my favorite fighter of all time. Like, I love his power, pause. I love his straight left hand pause. Like the man them like Chris Samson and all them man that think he's amazing. No, I'm
Don't
joking.
say my name. Don't say my name.
But listen, Rolly can't fight. He's the worst world champion I think I've ever laid eyes on ever. And I've been watching boxing a very long time. Even the guys that become champion by luck can fight. Rolly Romero genuinely cannot fight. He's just got pop. And I like, because the lighter weights are usually very stacked. It's very hard to be an accidental world champion in the lighter weight classes because technique is so much more important. It's really, really hard. So how he managed to finesse his way to his position, honestly, he deserves a movie just based off that. But the guy is a bum. Like his squeaky voice, his nose, everything about him, his head shape is just ridiculous. And the Isaac Cruz fight, Isaac Cruz beat the crap out of him. And what I find funny is one of the scorecards. Ronnie was winning. Like, what the hell? For the stoppage. Like, apparently it's the same guy that stopped the fight prematurely when he fought Barroso. And I thought, yeah, so what's going on? Is
The fix was in, boy.
Boy, is this not even a no did? Is this a Diddy thing? Are them two like linking up? Are they together? I don't know. Something's weird here, man. Like Rolly, listen, I'm just glad Rolly
Nah, Jilly, you're
Romero.
dumb. You're
I'm
dumb.
glad Rolly Romero is gonna be out of boxing soon. Like I don't wish bad
I
on
don't
people.
want him to be out of boxing. I can't lie.
You don't want him to be out
I want him to be in because
for what?
I think he's hilarious, bro. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I think he's so funny, and I think boxing needs characters like that. The reason why that fight has got so many views in terms of highlights online on YouTube so far is because of the humor aspect that he brings to boxing. He's funny. He's genuinely a funny fighter.
I heard that. But I think people are just they love the fact that he's been humbled. There a lot of the people that are watching the highlights are hate watchers, bro.
100%.
And the guy is an idiot, bro. He was gonna make a lot of money fighting Ryan Garcia. You turned it down to say you wanted to be a Amazon superstar. How's that work out for you, Rolly?
Well, listen, I think that was the wrong move. But I think the fight with Ryan Garcia is still there for him after Garcia loses.
No, it's not. Why
would
Ryan Garcia fight Rolly Romero, bro?
After he loses to Haney as a build-up fight, there's some sort of a name to him where he could generate some sort of money and kind of gain a bit of credibility. And it's going to be an easy, like if we're being real, Garcia sparks him up. So
you need to listen. Rolly needs to. I hire you, man. You need to.
We can get something going on, definitely. But yeah, I think that fight for him is there. But once Ryan Garcia loses to Haney, which I'm quite confident in,
is that fight even going to happen?
If the fight even happens. If it doesn't happen, he's going to need a few comeback fights where he could build a bit of momentum. And I think Rolly Romero is one of the pieces there for him to step on, really. That's what I believe personally. But listen, I hear exactly what you're saying, Jide, in regards to he's not a good fighter. Like, there's no way he should be anywhere near a world championship fight. And it was poor judgment on his behalf to avoid the Ryan Garcia fight initially, to think he could defend that title, which he got unjustly against Cruz. But I still think there's a few fights for him, and I reckon PBC might take care of him as well.
Take care of him for what? Listen, there's no handouts. What's taking care of him? They can't give him free. They're not just going to give him money. He wasn't making crazy
Not
money
money,
before.
not money. They'll give him a few fights, I reckon. Personally,
With who? With Tank. Tank, listen, Tank is gonna be a proper world champion now. That Isaac Cruz fight, that guy is a bum as well, by the way. Like
yep.
the fact that you beat Rolly don't make you now some elite fighter. Like now he's a WBA 140 champ. Tank's gonna go whoop that bum, no diddy. Gonna punch him up. He's gonna get the WBA title, but he's still not gonna fight anyone. So it's just like I don't even care about that side of the street. So Isaac Cruz, well done. Listen, congratulations on securing yourself a nice little payday. That's all I'm gonna say. Well done to you for that. But that fight is just hilarious. It's like two completely undeserving guys fighting for a title, and it's just that is the PBC, man. That is them. That fight is the PBC. It encapsulates them. So yeah.
Yeah,
Chris,
no, you can see the play coming like from a mile off, where the winner of this fight was obviously going to have to verse Tank again, and they're going to set Tank up for 3 division world champion, which to me actually makes my guts churn, bro. Like, not even gonna lie, it makes me sick because he's still protected now as a 30-year-old fighter, and it's like, when are we going to start seeing the fights we really want to see with Tank?
Yeah, I agree with both of what you both said. Chris, your thoughts on this fight?
Well, I agree with Adam. I agree with a lot of the points Jide and Adam have made. I think Rolly's entertaining for sure. He's a fighter who, is great in the build-up, partly because he's not very bright. But it's exciting, it's fun.
That's an
It's almost like people want it. Those boxing compilations where it's like when cocky boxer gets humbled. It's like people are watching for that kind of experience. So people just want to see him lose. And I get it. There's a market for it. Like I certainly wanted to see him lose. But yeah, he's a terrible fighter. Tank said it best when he said he's not an awkward fighter. He's a dumbass fighter. Because that's what he is. He's just not very good. Yes, he's got power, but power without much technique, you can only ever go so far. Yeah, he's managed to, rig his way to the position of getting the belt in the first place against Barroso, but like he was never that great. How he's been able to get the fights he has, it's probably just down to his personality, his persona. Isaac Cruz also is not very good. But he's a little bit more technically sound than Rolly is. And as we know, styles make fights in boxing. So it just happens to be the fact that Rolly doesn't have great feet and he hasn't got the best of IQs. And then I'm also not so sure about his chin neither. It's looking a bit suspicious these days. So the fight was only ever really going to end one way. If Isaac Cruz came at his best, because we've seen Isaac Cruz have a real stinker. Who was that tall fighter he fought on the Spence Crawford undercard?
Yeah. That fight.
Oh, Giovanni Cabrera. I remember what you said. That was a bad fight.
Yeah. I actually didn't think he won that fight. But it's just one of those things. If you match your fighter against the right kind of opponent, you've got a bit of a chance. Like Jide said, I feel like this has all been positioning to get Tank back into the fray with Isaac Cruz and make him a 3 division champion, which is just like no one wants to see that. Absolutely nobody wants to see that fight happen. We thought we got through the best of it when he won the fight the first time. I don't know what the excitement will be. I don't know. And Isaac Cruz is also pretty tough. So it's not even like it's going to be a guaranteed KO. He has to KO him, in my opinion, for it to be worthwhile. But either way, when we're not trying to see those fights, we're trying to see the big fights. He is being protected. Things are just a lot more obvious now. And it's funny because the fight was between, Rowley and Cruz, but Tank is probably he's been discussed just as much as those two since the fight. So yeah, nothing. Not. I'm not really going to do no technical analysis on that fight. Really, it was just a scrap.
Yeah, I agree. Dapo ended off for us the Cruz and Rowley.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say too much, but I'm with Jide, man. Listen, all this stuff about Rowley being entertained. Go to WWE with that, man. I really don't care to see him lose anymore. I don't really care to see him fight anymore. I've already saw Tank beat him up, so I've seen him humbled already. I don't need to see it again and again and again. If you guys want to be entertained, watch WWE. All that stuff. I don't find them funny, to be honest. I just find them annoying. In terms of Cruz, I used to think people call Cruz pitbull because of his short stature and how he fights, but he actually does look like a pitbull. Like I was looking at his face, he looks like a dog, which is crazy. Yeah, the fight was all right. I thought Rowley would lose, but neither men showed me anything that would kind of shake up the division. I think if you stack them up against the best guys, they will all lose. They'll both lose. So yeah, it's definitely a PBC job. We see what he's going to fight Tank. Tank's going to be a belt holder at 140, and then we'll then see if he decides to try and unify or not. But yeah, that's really my take, to be honest.
Yep, perfectly well summed up. And that's the recap for the weekend. So now we come into the bulk part of what we all here for, what we all want to discuss, and we all kind of want to have a go at. And I know everyone else wants to also give their takes on this. So I'm going to, I also want to hear what people think. So who do we think, because it's the bank holiday, so we've got time to talk about this. Who do we think in this generation, who's the GOAT? My GOAT, I don't mean the greatest of all time. I know we overuse that term, we don't use it properly. But I mean, in this generation, who is the best boxer that we have right now? What I want to do is I want to create a short list first, and then we can go into our short list. So I think the 4 fighters that we're going to have to talk about, I think everyone agree. I'm hoping if everyone agrees. If not, please, one of you lot, you can shout out your the one that I'm missing. I think the 4 fighters that we have to talk about is obviously Terence Crawford, Naoya Inoue, Alexander Usyk, and Canelo Alvarez. Is that fair enough of a short list?
I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll break down our picks and also the other fighters, what their claims are to being this generation's GOAT. And anyone that's listening, anyone that's watching, also give us your thoughts, because we want to hear what your thoughts of who the best boxer of this generation right now is. So let's go into the picks first, who we all got, and then we'll go into sort of everyone else and kind of the other fighters and what their claim is. So Chris, who is your generation's GOAT?
My generation's GOAT. Quickly before I answer, what's the time range we're looking at right now?
Meaning?
As in the year, the time that we're given. The time and interval.
What generation? I'd say around. Well, how long would a generation be? Like 7 to 10 years.
That was good. Probably
Just say all the man them fighting now, man.
Okay, yeah, active, yeah.
Okay, active GOATs.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, for me, it's Alexander Usyk. I think it's Usyk. I think it's quite close at the top. I think it's Usyk, and then I'd probably give it to Crawford, and then I'd give it close behind. I'd say Canelo. Those would be my top 3.
Completely fair. Adam?
Okay, I think it would be Usyk if he goes on to win undisputed.
Ukrainian bias.
The reason why, Ukrainian bias might be one of the things. I'm not going to disclude that, but I'm taking into account his amateur background as well. Ridiculous record. I think it's like 335 wins to 15 losses. an Olympic gold medalist, and potentially
how'd you beat that guy? that amateur record is crazy.
it's mad. And potentially, I mean, he's going to be the first undisputed heavyweight champion in the 4-belt era, and also a undisputed champion at cruiserweight as well. So taking all of those things into consideration, and the fact that this guy is having to beat people that are considerably larger than him. Pause. But he's fighting fighters who have like 20, 30, 40 pounds on top of him. And he's going in there and showing that boxing wins. Sometimes it's not the biggest that wins all the time. It's the one with the most skill. So I would have him probably just edged first. Honestly, the rest of the three, it's a toss-up. You could easily make an account for all three of them. I think it's very easy to forget the achievements that Canelo has made in the sport because of recency bias. But maybe recently he hasn't been as active as the other fighters, and he's coming at the later stage of his career right now. But that guy has done a lot for the sport. But I'm also taking into consideration what I believe were a loss and a draw against Golovkin. So I'd actually put Canelo probably bottom out of the three in terms of all the credentials. And then the second and third spot would be a toss-up between Inoue and Crawford. I couldn't really call it either way, to be honest. I think both are phenomenal fighters, exceptionally skilled fighters, very athletic. They're the type of fighters I like watching the most. And I can't really make an account for either of them for second or third. I can't choose. So I'm just going to go for my top pick, just edge slightly, and my bottom pick in Canelo.
Yeah, very well said. Dapo, for you, the GOAT, the best boxer.
This is actually so tough because the more I'm thinking about it, everyone actually has a mad claim. Initially, I was going to say Usyk, but the more I'm thinking about it, I think it might be Crawford for me because of the way Crawford cleaned both his divisions up. Like, Usyk is definitely, he's definitely number one in the heavyweight division right now, but he hasn't cleaned the division up. There's still people he needs to fight to claim that he's cleaned up the division. Albeit he probably has fought the best that the heavyweight division has to offer, but, I can't think of the only people I can think of in the welterweight division that Crawford hasn't fought. Maybe it's Boots Ennis, but he's beat everybody else. And prior to that, before he moved up, he beat everyone in that division too. So, and I'm thinking about the quality of opposition as well. The names, Spence's. He beat Spence. He beat what's the brother's name that he fought before Spence?
Porter.
Porter, Carl Brook. Amir Khan, Avanesian, all these names, not Avanesian, but the other guys. These are some really, really good names in his record. I'm stuck. I don't know. But then at the same time as well, like Adam said, some of the guys that Usyk has been, Anthony Joshua, Derek Chisora, these guys have, some 20, sometimes 30 pounds over him, and he's not just schooling some of them, he's hurting them at times as well. So, yeah, I think for me, number one is Crawford, and I think it's Usyk second. Crawford number one, Usyk second, Inoue number three, and then I've got Canelo last. But at the same time, that run that Canelo had in super middle, where he fought BJS, he beat Caleb Plant, Callum Smith, and that was a crazy run. So all four of these guys, man, it's really hard to just pick one. I can't lie. The more I'm thinking about it, they all have a strong claim. But I think for me, number one is Crawford.
And Jide, your pick.
I echo Chris's sentiment, man. I want to say Usyk so bad, but right now, as of today, it's got to be Bud for me. Usyk, if he beats Fury, is number one, without a doubt. But that is still a big if. I know we shit on Fury a lot, but we need to see it. We need to see Usyk overcome that challenge. We've seen Bud overcome his challenges, right? So that's the difference. In terms of skill, you can't split them. Usyk's just an unbelievable amateur, and I feel like what I'm not even gonna look at his amateur. Let's even ignore that. I feel like what hurts Usyk is the cruiserweight division isn't historically great. When he was there, it had a lot of great fighters. That's what people don't understand. So when Dapper was saying all the names, it's literally marketing because Bradis, the Cuban, I forgot his name.
Dorticus, no,
He
he didn't fight Dorticus.
didn't fight Dorticus, but it wasn't around that. It wasn't a Super Six. He didn't fight him, but it wasn't a
Because
Super Six. He
Dorticus
just
lost
lost.
to.
Yeah, he lost. But I'm just trying to say the names in the division, not the names Usyk fought. I'm trying to say the
He
division.
fought Hunter,
He
Bredis,
fought Hunter. He fought Bradis,
Marco Huck,
Huck, and then what's his name? The one that went heavyweight and got blasted out by Wallin.
Gassiev.
Gassiev, yes.
That was
So
final.
I'm just saying the division had talent when Usyk was there.
Mm.
The cruiserweight division was good. I'm just trying to because obviously Dapper was saying how Spence has all the names, and I'm just saying like Usyk has fought really really good guys. It's just that because the cruiserweight division isn't rated historically, people don't really care what's going on there. So I would say Usyk has names. He has good names on him. He went to heavyweight.
No,
And
I
he
didn't
beat.
say that to say that Usyk doesn't have good names. I just thought Crawford's name stand out a bit more for me.
Yeah, no. They do. I'm not disputing that. You're right. But I also say he went heavyweight and he schooled arguably top 3 heavyweight in the world and top 2 of this era. Again, it's all arguable. Like he schooled him. He beat up a top contender in Dubois. He beat up Chisora, who's always game. Like obviously he hasn't got the heavyweight resume and he never will. But if he becomes the first man to be undisputed at cruiserweight and undisputed at heavyweight, the two potentially hardest divisions to well, heavyweight anyways, the hardest division and the most illustrious division in the entire sport. That is, and he schools Fury. He doesn't just beat him; he schools him. That would just add credence to the bow that Usyk is number 1. But as of 1st of April 2024, it's got to be Bud. Like I said, he's knocked out his last 10 fights. He's knocked everyone out. Like Dapo says, he's got the names there. He also schooled Spence. Amazing, probably the most well-rounded boxer in this list. Like he can generally do everything. He's an outboxer without being an outboxer. Like he's just always out of range. He throws with mean intentions. He's the best switch hitter I've ever seen in my entire life. His jab's great. His left hand's great. He takes a good shot. His defense isn't like the most elite defense ever, but it's good enough. And it's like he's aggressive with his defense. That's why I was like saying it's different from like a Floyd. Floyd is very safety first and his defense is very mechanical to avoid shots. However, like someone like Crawford, he uses his defense to set up offense. If you get what I mean, like it's beautiful to watch. So he has everything. He has the vibe check, he has the bag, and he has the resume. The only thing like we'll say now is Usyk is having his biggest test coming up. I want Crawford to beat Boots, just so we can say, okay, you beat everyone in your generation, you beat everyone in the past generation, now you beat everyone in the next coming up generation, and then yeah, you're a goat candidate. And that's what I'd like for him to do, but we might not get that. So yeah.
Who would you have behind him then in terms of order?
If I was gonna list it, then I'll say, like I said, right now it's Crawford, then Usyk, then Inoue, then Canelo. But I'm between Canelo and Inoue. I'm very very like I want to put Canelo above him a little bit sometimes, but
I agree. There's one thing with Inoue, I think, that kind of makes his claim a bit less than the others, is that I don't think any of us has seen Inoue struggle in a fight, if that makes sense. Like he's never been thrown in the deep end and had to.
He has.
Who?
Yes. against Danae.
Donaire, yeah.
Bro, Danae broke his
Donaire is
Danae
one
broke
fight.
his eye
Yeah.
socket. He
He broke
he
his
had to
jaw when he went decision, innit?
yeah, my only thing with Inoue is, bro, it's I can't lie. I know people hate hearing it, but it's way easier to go up in weight classes when there's like 1 or 2 pounds between you. Like
100%. 100%. Yeah,
it's just what it is, isn't it? Like
100%.
I'm not here to sell you dreams. It's just way more easier. But Inoue is generational, is amazing. But Canelo has the deepest resume of anyone in this list by a country mile. However, you don't get credit for losing. You don't get credit for losing. Obviously, you lost all, but when we're talking about the best
A
ever,
few controversial fights as well. Yeah, man.
and he has exactly
Yeah.
he has the controversial fights
If we're being
he's
real,
lost. So yeah, it's got to be. He can't be in the top two, in my opinion. And for me, fourth is a fair place for him, and Inoue third, because Inoue is unbeaten. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm just gonna while I give my one, I'm just gonna point this out. So put some I don't know how to say his name, Moturatainment topic, put some respect on Fury's name. Usyk ain't number one. How did Fury
No
end
respect. How about that next?
well hold on. How did Fury end up in this conversation when we're talking about
Fam.
generational goats? Because this is a guy who's a career heavyweight and he still hasn't cleaned out his entire division.
Or maybe he's talking about when I said Usyk is number one in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
But he is. He is
But
number one.
3 belts. He's got 3.
He is number one.
Yeah.
And Fury got dropped by Ngannou. That's not number one, man. Come on, let's be serious.
And then how come a guy who only fought AJ becomes number one? I'm saying in the heavyweight division. So again, he's repeating the same point. But
Well, I mean, he fought. It's a thing where Fury hasn't fought AJ. This is a guy that Fury has continuously ducked. If we're being
AJ is a better win than Fury's best win.
Easily.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the answer.
No, I do hear him though. I do hear his point in that you can't say, because if we're being real, Usyk has only had like what 5 fights or whatever in the heavyweight division. So I get what he's trying to say, but it's the value of those wins. I'm sorry, when you come in and beat the baddest man in AJ, because before that loss to Usyk, Ruiz aside, everyone was saying that AJ was back after the Pulev fight. Everyone was saying it was a very, very good performance. He was very balanced. He knew when to be aggressive. No one was really doing the question marks over AJ's mentality.
AJ was definitely the favorite going into that fight.
Say that again, sorry?
He was the favorite going to that first fight.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone was saying AJ's going to win that fight, me included. We all thought AJ would win, but that's where he really showed the levels. So I get what he's saying, but at the same time, that win over AJ, not once, but twice, is deeper than over half of Fury's resume put together. So that's where we're coming from, really, I believe.
yeah, I agree with a lot of what you lot said. For me, there's only 2 fighters right now that are in contention, and I'd have to give it to Bud right now. Because if you look at Bud's overall record, I think he's a 3 division champion or 4, I can't remember. I think it's 3 division champion, double undisputed. And since he's come to welterweight, it just seems like that's his best weight possible because he's just stopped every single one. I mean, if I just look through his record, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He's on an 11 fight knockout streak, which is insane. I mean, even Inoue, we know him as the kind of monster puncher and everything, and he is, because obviously he proves it. Even he's not on that long of a streak. He is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. He's on a 7 fight knockout streak. So the fact that at the highest level, even both of them, Inoue does it as well, but Bud is able to just consistently knock guys out, and his timing's brilliant. The way he's just been going through these divisions and he's just been beating the top guys. Like, he's got really good names on his record, like Victor Postel. He's got obviously Errol Spence, Sean Porter, Gamboa. He fought Gamboa when Gamboa was a champion, when Gamboa was at his best. Ricky Burns. He's got really good Julius Ndongo as well. He beat Jeff Horn after Jeff Horn beat Manny Pacquiao, and he stopped these guys. For me, it has to be obviously Terence Crawford, but I think the one guy that will overtake Usyk and Bud is Inoue, because remember, Inoue is 30 years old. That guy is the closest thing we have to Manny Pacquiao since Manny Pacquiao. You know, going up divisions, knocking guys out, looking as dominant as ever, and just not looking like anyone in his division or anyone in any division near him is anywhere near close to him. And he's got a fight coming up with Luis Neri. He wins that again. He keeps establishing himself as not only, like right now, he's one of the best bantamweights of all time. He's going to establish himself as one of the best super bantamweights of all time. I feel like when he goes to featherweight, he'll do the same thing and establish himself as one of the best featherweights of all time. And then with him, you go, well, within 3 divisions, he's classified himself as one of the best of all time. You've got to give him the GOAT, because he's gone across 3 different divisions, not only just beating the guys there, but he's built up a legacy of no one can really touch him. It's the same thing that
Naeem doing tricks on it, boy.
like you weren't doing it just 5 minutes ago for AJ. It can go both ways, bro.
Oh, damn.
But with Usyk as well, he's established himself as one of the best cruiserweights ever. Like if you look at the cruiserweight division, the only one that comes near to him is Holyfield. That's it. There's no other cruiserweight that comes close to what Usyk's done. And with Bud, he's one of the better welterweights of all time, and he's got that kind of performance in that division where you can compare him across all eras of welterweight. And welterweight, out of all those divisions that I've said, welterweight's the most stacked division we've ever had across all time. Like welterweight's consistently always had good fighters throughout the years, and Bud is one of those guys. Along with Inoue and Bud, Inoue and Usyk, you do the same thing for them. But Bud, you can compare him to Sugar Ray Leonard. You can compare him to Floyd Mayweather. You can compare him to Tommy Hearns. You can compare him to etc. You can keep comparing him to the top welterweights ever, because he's on that level and he's more than capable enough. And if he does get that super middleweight bout, not super middleweight, light welterweight bout, light middleweight bout, sorry, where he's able to fight either Fundora or Tszyu, he keeps adding to his resume and he keeps adding to his achievements. We're in that special period where there's 3 guys that really stand out. And I don't care about undefeated records, but all 3 of them are undefeated. No one stepped to them. All 3 of them have had close fights. But I think all 3 of them have only had one close fight at the top level. Inoue's was Donaire, where he won, but he was really in a lot of trouble in that fight. Crawford's was, what was it called? I think it was, there was a fight early on that he kind of did struggle in. It might have been, what has he had a fight that he struggled in? It might have been the Cavalier. It might have been
there was a fight where he did struggle in, yeah.
I know the Aegis Cavaliescus, he got dropped, in my opinion. Like that was enough for him to get a knockdown. Obviously, they didn't count it, but he did end up stopping him. And Usyk, he had that close fight with Breedis. So for me, Bud, if he doesn't have a close fight, I think that also is another reason to sort of push him forward, because he hasn't really had a close fight. Obviously, he had hairy moments, but I don't think there's any fight that you can look back on and go, "Ooh, this like he won," but he's very close to. He could have lost it had 1 or 2 rounds not gone his way. So yeah, it has to be Bud right now. But like I said, Inoue is the guy that I think will definitely overtake it, and he'll be one that we'll be comparing to Manny Pacquiao and Floyd, and we actually be cross comparing to guys like Lomachenko, or like, at featherweight, how these 2 look. But like
I think for us to start making that comparison with Inoue, because if we're being totally honest, most people in America, for example, or even in the UK, probably have never heard of him. I think he does need to go up the weights a bit more. And I know you, Naeem, think it's more difficult than what I personally feel or Jide feels it is. Because I do feel like you can add the weight.
It's about body weight percentage, though, isn't it?
Say that again, sorry?
You have to look at it as body weight percentage, because you have a guy that's 108 pounds when he first started. Now, if you want him to go to 126, that's 14 pounds, right? So that's
no, the percentage. I hear your argument. I hear your argument, definitely. In fact, it's a very valid argument. I ain't got anything to say back, but I do still feel like those, like for example, to go from 122 to 126, even if you've gained X amount, when you look at a fighter's earlier fights, he was probably cutting a lot of weight. He was probably under his natural weight anyway, if that makes sense. So
That's
I
true.
personally still, but I think for us to start making that comparison, I want to see Inoue touch 130. I'm not even going to lie to you, but for us to start making that comparison, really.
Yeah, that's true. I think the thing with Inoue is more the fact that he started at light flyweight, so he really did start very low, and the fact that he's here is a big credit because he's basically added almost 14 pounds, and that's enough for 2 weight divisions in normal weight classes. You go from 147 to 154 and then to 160. That's 14 pounds almost.
Mm-hmm.
So we can compare a fighter like that. Then you could compare it to like that way. He's dominated welterweight. He would have dominated light welterweight, light middleweight, and then he would have dominated middleweight. Like in that comparison, and that's still, if you'd done that, we would be sitting here and going, you know what, that guy's
100%. Not even discrediting what he's done. No, not at all. But I think there's just that little bit more, and particularly because he's still young. I mean, he's what, 31, I think?
30, yeah.
30, exactly. So there's still that bit more for him. Personally, I mean, I'd like to see it. Maybe I'm asking for too much. I don't know. I know Jide would like to see him fight at 154 at one point, but it is what it is. Like, it's not bad for us to ask for such things. Maybe not 154, but yeah.
If it was up to Jide, he'll be making Inoue fight Fury. You ain't the good unless you fight Fury. It's always be that next sort of step, isn't it? So
I don't know why you lot always think I don't get why you lot think I'm extreme with it. I'm genuinely not extreme with it. I'm just very real. Like, certain man will call certain man the greatest of all time. So if that is the criteria, you have to do extraordinary things. That's just it. It's not like I'm going to fucking Devin Haney. Oh, by the way, Devin Haney, you need to go up 5 weight divisions and clean. No, because I do not see Devin Haney as the greatest of all time. But when man tell me Lomachenko is the greatest talent, Dr. Leroy, by the way,
I agree with him, by the way.
he's the greatest talent he has ever seen, and probably the most skilled boxer of all time. Yeah, I want to see extraordinary things. I'm just sorry. You have to prove to me you are that guy. Floyd Mayweather, my goat when I was still watching boxing as an excited teenager / early adult. He called himself the best ever, the greatest, and for the most part, he was doing his thing. But when the beautiful thing about boxing being a 200-year-old sport is, if you have the time and you truly claim you love the sport, you can go back and see what certain guys did. It is a storied and long sport. So if there's a guy called Sugar Ray Robinson who, when the same day weigh-ins, you couldn't really scout your opponents. Boxing was more of a mainstream sport them days as well, and you were fighting from cabbies to elite guys. You was fighting everyone. You're fighting regularly, and a man cleaned out welterweight, like literally went like 70 something and 0 with like most of them being knockouts. Then out of his prime went to middleweight, had some of the greatest fights in that division. Then further out of his prime goes on fight to light heavyweight champion. He didn't win, but that is what I'm talking about, extraordinary things. I feel like Floyd is more skilled than Ray Robinson, but that is pushing your body to the limit. Win or loss, you tried. Floyd, if he went to middleweight and tried, I'm not saying he has to, but when you call yourself the greatest of all time, I don't think it's a stretch to say, all right, cool, do something your contemporary or your peer has done. Whether you succeed is a different thing, innit? But wow me, do something that I don't expect you to do. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying like, I want Inoue to now fight, but I don't see Inoue as the greatest of all time. So I'm not gonna expect Inoue to go to welterweight. But if he said something like, I think I'm the greatest Asian of all time, I'm better than Manny Pacquiao, then I'll be like, all right, cool. What did Manny Pacquiao do? Man went from flyweight to welterweight to light middleweight, sorry, and he was cleaning up guys. Can you do that? That's just me. And if you can't do that, you need to do stuff like be undisputed or go through like a 25 KO run. Do you know what I'm saying? You have to separate yourself. That's what I want from these guys. Just separate yourself.
One thing I'll say to counter that though, I do think it's a lot harder for boxers now to climb up in weight, like several weight divisions, purely because I feel boxers are getting bigger and bigger at the weights as we go on. Using the term weight bullies, there's a lot more weight bullies now that I could think of compared to back in the day. Maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like for example, a middleweight going up and challenging heavyweights would not happen in this day and age at all. It's impossible. Fighters are just becoming bigger and bigger. Pause. But that's the only thing I could challenge you on that aspect. I just feel like there's a lot more weight bullies around for people to start going through 5-6 weight divisions in this day and age in boxing.
Yeah, I think it's much harder now to go up weight division than it used to be. And also, you got much more talented athletes coming into the sport as it keeps evolving. So it's going to be harder to be dominant than it was before. But I do agree with both sentiments that you have to do certain extraordinary things to show that you are one of the best of all time. Let me just quickly go through what some people responded to the tweets. So Raf, so Elusive 2.0, big up Raf. He said, in terms of all-time pound-for-pound acclaim, Inoue Bud have the strongest acclaim thus far. But they're held to a different standard in this era where losing an undefeated streak is considered taboo. Older fighters who lost, held to today's standards, would lose GOAT points, which I agree with. It's that Floyd Mayweather effect where, because people seen Floyd Mayweather and he's one of the best, that in order to be one of the best, you also have to be undefeated. You can't lose a single fight, even if you avenge it. Doesn't matter, you lost. So people do hold that against you. So that is true. That there are different standards nowadays to what we would have said if we were in their 70s compared to now, in terms of how we measure who the best boxer of all time, best boxer of this generation is. Matty Roll says, as much as I want to give it to Crawford, he's stuck in the worst era from 147 to 168 in quite some time, and no one will fight him anyway. If Usyk beats Fury, it's him, but even if he doesn't, it's still close between him and Inoue. Usyk's run is a bit underrated, in my opinion. Anyone want to counter that? He's saying that Crawford's era from 147 to 168 isn't the best. It's the worst era.
That's cap, man. That's cap.
It's not the best. But I don't think
it's not the best, but it's not bad. Yeah, it's not the worst. It's not like, and when we say it's not the best, it's because we didn't get certain fights when we should have got them. And when
is Usyk's one the best?
Yeah, Usyk's not.
Cruiserweight.
No, Usyk's cruiserweight run is the best. It is the best.
Like, if we're being honest, that division was stacked. It's just the names weren't that popular because all of them were Tszyu drinkers. But if you look at the division itself, the fighters, they were very talented.
All time.
In cruiserweight division, I'd say it's the best.
Okay.
Cruiserweight division.
What cruiserweight era? Remember, it's a relatively young division as well. What cruiserweight era do you think was better than the one that Usyk came out of?
Off the top of my mind, I can't really think.
There's not one. No. I genuinely can't. Yeah. What? Dwight Muhammad Kawi, them times, but he came from light heavyweight.
I was just thinking
the cruiserweight division one. Like, there's generally not a cruiserweight era that had the amount of talent where we had Usyk, Bradis, Gassiev, Dorticus, Hunter. Like, we didn't have that. This is the most, well, not the current one, but that era was the best cruiserweight era. So yeah, but I still think it's not fair to say Crawford had the worst. I just think because of the politics of boxing, he was frozen out. If Crawford was allowed to fight guys like Porter and Thurman when the fight should have happened, this would be an entire different discussion. It would be, because, bro, let's be real, like Thurman, Porter, Adrian Broner, although I don't think of him as an elite fighter, is a name there, right? And he's in the era. We had Spence, Kell Brook, Amir Khan. We cannot now pretend these guys are not very, very good welterweights, bro. They are. I remember I tried to cook Spence when I say he's an overrated all-time great after he lost to Bud. That's me just hating, man. I just love the fact that my boy whooped Spence, but Spence is an all-time great welterweight, bro. Like, his resume as a welterweight is stacked. and Bud destroyed him. So we cannot say Bud is in a weak era. I just do not agree with that at all.
Well said. Bookie Brown says Terence Crawford the best period. Yeah, this guy's definitely American.
Bro, that picture.
He's right. He's definitely American. The name, the spelling, yeah, this guy's American. But yeah, he's right. Terence
And
Crawford.
the period at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, this guy's right.
Yeah.
But fair enough. Terence Crawford probably is. I agree with that. I think that covers it. I think we kind of all have that's the great thing about the sport. We kind of have all our own picks of time in terms of who we think is the best boxer of all time. That's how you know the boxing's in a good place, and we're lucky to have these talented boxers keep fighting. That we can have these debates and we can have these arguments, and there's not any sort of set position of who who's the best ever. So
If Usyk beats Fury, do you know how crazy that career is?
yeah,
A Ukrainian done. That's crazy.
Before we do Fury Usyk, before the Fury Usyk fight, we'll definitely do a me and Adam will definitely be a part of it, where we'll do a whole career breakdown on Alexander Usyk in the build up to this Fury Usyk fight, because his career is like, a lot of people don't realize when you're your career B-side road warrior, the stuff he's done in the amateurs, the Olympics, everything, like that has to be talked about.
If Usyk spoke fluent English, yeah, oh my gosh, oh my days, it's because he's not English. That's why people don't know him like that.
That too, and also his style is good, but it's not always going to be the most entertaining in terms of
true.
Fight.
Well, he's got some good stoppage wins, man. Some really good ones.
He has, but it's like
Tony Belly win, crazy.
He has, but it's like when you go to heavyweight, you usually want to see like big guys just swinging,
of course,
and just knocking guys out, like guys that look like they can punch through a wall. Like you want to see that type of stuff. So that is what that goes against him when it comes to the marketability. But yeah, a great generation that we have, that we can have these debates, and that these guys are in constant fights, and all three of them, well, Bud included, hopefully are going to be in soon fights that are going to keep defining their era, keep defining their legacy. And they've got big fights ahead of them, and so I can't wait. And this was a great debate to have. I think we all made good points, and it's fun to have these type of conversations. And we're going to keep trying to bring you more content and more of these questions. This Saturday, if everyone's around, we'll do the big question. So this is everyone listening in, tuning in right now. You'll get in the preview. Is AJ back? And we're going to go into a bit of discussion about whether or not Anthony Joshua is really back or not. And we're going to go into in detail. We also want to get your thoughts on it as well. So make sure you're tuning in this Saturday. And I'll try to put out some content as well in these next 2 weeks, because I've got holidays, so I can, we can definitely get more stuff out. But thank you for tuning in. Follow us on Twitter at Ringside Fracas. Again, leave any questions or thoughts in the comments below. Please subscribe, like, comment. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, give us 5 stars. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.
Peace out.
Peace out.